you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Chaplain, over to you.
Good morning and welcome to our 49th annual NNOA Symposium and our Marine Corps Day. Matthew 18 and 20 states, "For where two or three have gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst." We are gathered virtually this morning around the globe for a time of fellowship, mentoring, and learning. I am Chaplain Takana Jefferson, the National Chaplain, and I'm here to bring you the motivational moment on this beautiful Wednesday morning. From Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 9 through 12, also known to theologians as Kohelet, reads as follows. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not quickly broken. There are those in life who believe or buy into the self-made person concept and how they did everything on their own with help from no one. This kind of island mindset is often glorified. However, throughout the Bible, we learn the importance of community, the value of friendship and relationship, as we all need somebody. We are where we are today in life because of the shoulders we stand, of someone who paved the road or opened the door before us. Their sacrifice led to our success and future generations to come. Here in the book of wisdom, having a friend is invaluable. Verse 10 states, if either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. During the lockdown of 2020, at the height of the pandemic, many of us found ourselves alone and isolated. We learned even more the importance of friendships. We learned that by not having the social interactions we become accustomed to and enjoy were a detriment to our mental health and well-being. We saw an increase in depression and other ailments, all because of not having those social interactions. Then platforms such as Zoom and others afforded us the ability to be able to connect. We all need that person or persons we can call on to confide in, hold us accountable, and sharpen us. A person or a community who challenges us to be the best we can be personally, spiritually, and professionally. One of my all-time favorite scriptures is Proverbs 27 and 17. And it says, iron sharpens iron. So one person sharpens another. Community is important in so many ways. This is why symposiums such as the National Naval Officers Association is vital to our sea service, because we have the opportunity to be all together, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and SES. We're all here to learn from one another and strengthen one another. The only place you will have all officers ranks from 010 and below to some enlisted to discuss issues that are relevant to our current situation and how we can improve them and make it better. The wisdom of our elders is important as they have paved the way and carried the mantle. Now it is up to us and the younger generation to keep that mantle going. And I reflect to the New Testament, and that's as this was the whole purpose of the life of Jesus. Now I know many look at the death and resurrection as being ultimate, but his life was extremely important as it laid the foundation. Jesus had 12 of his closest people with him, his disciples. They went everywhere with Jesus and saw his most intimate moments, from weeping when Lazarus died, to having his feet washed with oil, to being angry and flipping the table over in the temple and petitioning God about letting the cup pass for him. Now, mind you, as friends, the disciples fell asleep on that last one, but nevertheless, they were there. They were a community. They were there for the good, the bad, and the ugly. The original trailblazer and trendsetter, Jesus, understood he was not going to be here always. Therefore, he needed others to carry on the legacy, encouraging one another, holding one another accountable, and providing wisdom to one another is a key to a healthy community, village, and friendship. It is by the testimonies of each of our different trials that we make it through life. I love where in Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, the verse of the 3 strands of cord are not easily broken. Why? Because all the strands are connected and woven together tightly. And if you ever watch the strands or cords come apart, it has to tear apart one by one until it eventually unravels. Again, the example is a reminder of the importance of sticking together through the thick and the thin. There is a quote by Rudyard Kipling that says, "For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack." This expresses the individual's gains just as much from the group as the group gains from the individuals. The group as a whole can make the individual stronger or weaker. So as we continue to fellowship with one another, let us make each other stronger and take advantage of the opportunity afforded us through this year's symposium. I'll end on one last note because I feel that it's very important, and then I'll close out in prayer. Further down the text that I didn't read, it talks about success. From having got all this one king could, and he could all he can, and how now it was all meaningless, and wisdom eluded him. Building his big mansions and having a lot of physical possessions were meaningless once we leave this earth. We cannot take any of this with us, though many of the Egyptian pharaohs tried by burying them in their tombs, yet they were left behind for grave robbers. So what really matters then? I argue relationships. We build with one another. And with that, we must seek wisdom in all that we do. As we continue through life, we can never become so self-absorbed that we forget to further our learning and to grow. One should constantly seek to learn and gain wisdom from others around them. And to remember to be the voice for those who do not have a voice. Seek to do good to all humankind and well. It is the experiences in helping others and building a legacy, not on possessions, but people, that is everlasting and meaningful. Let us pray. Eternal God, our Redeemer and strength, we thank you for this time of fellowship as we are connected through our community. I pray your continued blessings upon day 2 of this symposium. May new relationships develop and old ones reconnect as we see the value of togetherness. And Lord, I also say a special prayer over Haiti and the devastation they are experiencing, and for the Afghanistan refugees and our military doing what we do best in protecting the freedom of others around the world. Keep us, guide us in all that we do. In the name of the Almighty One, we pray, amen, and Semper Fi. This has been your motivational moment.
And thank you very much, Chaplain. Appreciate it. Really like starting the day off right and getting our heads around things. And welcome to Marine Corps Day. I said, welcome to Marine Corps Day. I couldn't get one Ura. A Gator sailor for the last third of my career. I got a Mumford Point Marine as an uncle, and I got a Vietnam, 3-time Vietnam combat first sergeant Marine as another uncle. So I was expecting a stronger Ura, but that's okay. I know that the Commandant and Colonel Kula are going to take it from here real quick. Hey, we've had a great first day, a fantastic panel that started Monday evening, yesterday. Outstanding from top to bottom. Thank you to all that had a part to play in that. And we're just going to keep on getting better. And that's what we are here with Marine Corps Day. You know, there's a sign over my desk that says, don't be afraid of change. Be afraid of not changing. And in my 34 years in the Navy, and a good third of it was with the Marine Corps in various places, from the Pentagon out to Pakistan, I know few organizations that know how to adapt and to lead change better than the United States Marine Corps. And nobody I can remember has done it better than the man who will be talking to us in a few minutes. So with that, I'm going to ask everybody, don't forget to vote. We've got four positions that need to be sorted out here. There's a memo that came out last night. You should have seen it in your email. If you haven't, contact Major Tracy Holt Shirley, who is our legal advisor, and he can get you another copy. But we need to get the voting done. It's all electronic. And make sure you apply for the 50th logo contest. Our 50th anniversary is next year in Annapolis. You don't want to be late. So with that, over to you, Colonel Kula.
Okay, thank you so much, Admiral Harris. Just a couple of admin notes before we get started. First of all, good morning, everybody. On behalf of the National Naval Officers Association and the United States Marine Corps, thank you for attending the 49th NNOA Annual Symposium. I'm your host, Colonel Seth O'Clue. If your internet can support it, I encourage you to turn on your camera. Before we get started, just make sure that all your mics are muted. Please ensure you remain muted to ensure background noises don't affect the session. This session is being recorded and shared for future viewing. Next, please update your screen name with your rank, your title, and your preferred name so that we have a sense of who's joining us online. When you hover over the mouse cursor over your window in the top right corner, you'll see an ellipse or 3 dots. Click on that, select rename. Also for viewing, in the top right corner of your screen, you will see a few view options. Click on that toggle between speaker and gallery view, and you can go back and forth. Third, we definitely want to take your questions. So please use the chat function to send in your questions. We will keep track of all those questions and then ask those questions on your behalf. The goal is to get through as many of the questions as possible in a fair and equitable manner without hindering quality discussion. Finally, throughout the session, we'll be taking screenshots just to show the participation via social media after the fact. They may be used in future advertising or other promotional avenues. With that, it's my sincere honor and pleasure to introduce the 38th Commandant of the Marine Corps, who joined us last year and just was a wealth of knowledge. I've had the privilege of spending the last couple of days with him, and just a powerful message and direction that the Corps is going. You have his bio in front of you, so I won't belabor anything else, and I'll turn it over to General David Berger.
First, Seth, thanks for the intro, and for Admiral Harris also for allowing me back. And I listened to your admin instructions there, Seth, so I'll make sure I mute, because I'm probably one of the culprits there. But I listened to your instructions. I will mute my microphone so I don't be one of those that gets sideways with you. I've served with both of those leaders who teed this off, both with Admiral Sinclair when he was in uniform, and he's got an incredible amphibious maritime background, and Seth also. So I've had the privilege of serving alongside of both of them, and I've learned from both of them, continue to learn from both of them. So thanks. And in a way, first of all, I don't think you can overstate the importance of the organization itself. And as Colonel Oklu pointed out, this conference, I think the organization really important because we need forums where we can talk about the problem sets, the possible solutions across a really wide range of topics, and in a way does that for us. And they also support the Navy and the Marine Corps and the Coast Guard as organizations because they provide part of our professional development and the mentorship, which I wasn't aware of until 4, 5, 6 years ago. And mentorship is powerful. It's really relevant and it's very powerful because that's what's going to help us, I think, meet the future challenges that we have. And that's what I'm going to focus on today. And I thought I'd spend a few minutes giving you my thoughts. And I know my battle buddy, the CNO and the Commandant of the Coast Guard are part of a 3-day lineup. So I'm going to focus my talk today, my comments on a horizon about 2 years out, perhaps, what my focus is for the next 2 years. And then I'd like to hear your thoughts. And that can be critical, it can be supportive, it can be a question, like all that is good to me because it's going to help inform the direction that we're going. We don't have all the answers is my point. We should have enough humility to know that we have an aim point, but we don't have all the answers. And my role, I think, as a service chief, just so you know from the beginning, my role is sort of the headlights out in front of the service. I think that's where the service chief can do their best work. And I'm talking years down the road. My horizon when I get up every day and come to work in the Pentagon is 10 years out. I'll come back into the moment like we will for Haiti or Afghanistan, but my focus down the road is where I think I can help the service best. Now, how do we get there in the day-to-day decisions? I think in the experimentation, all that comes from the force, out from the fleet. So I'm not going to talk so much today about equipment. I'm not going to talk about gear or technology on that part of where the Marine Corps is headed in our force design. That's all part of where we're going, but to modernize the force, to get the Marine Corps to where it needs to be, there's an element of the human part that's most important. And that's what I'm going to focus on because as the Marine Corps, we are very much a people-centric organization. The most important aspect of the Marine Corps is not a piece of gear. It's not a plane, it's not a ship. It's the individual Marine. Because the simple part of it is even if you had all the right equipment, even if you had the perfect warfighting concepts, even if you had all of that, none of it would matter if you don't have the right people in the right positions and the right amount of training. Oh, I agree with the Secretary of Defense that China is our pacing challenge for the next 10, 15 years. That could change, but as of today in August 2021, I think I absolutely support that. I believe the same. I also think it doesn't mean we're trying to go to war with China. Both of us want to avoid it, but they are clearly our competitors. Their economy, their military is growing rapidly, as all of you know. And we cannot assume, we should not assume that we're going to have a technological advantage in every domain all the time over a pure competitor going forward. That's a hard thing to swallow, hard pill to swallow perhaps, but it's fact. So I think as that advantage erodes and there's more and more parity, I think it becomes even more critical to look at what edge we can maintain. And the edge, the advantage that we will have is the human, is the individual decision-making, the competence of the unit. So I think we are going to need Marines who are more cognitively mature, more experienced than we have in the force, have had in the force in the past. Our pacing challenge is driving us to work much more closely with our sister services than we have in the past. I believe that in this sort of great power competition, near peer competitor. I think no service, not the Navy, not the Air Force, not the Marine Corps, the Army, no service is going to be able to do it alone. No one's going to win the competition. Nobody's going to be able to achieve deterrence alone. It's going to have to be a joint force. Now, in the past, I think joint would have been nice to have. In the future, there's no other way to achieve what the defense strategy tasks us to do. It's a must. So therefore, the Marine Corps' role now as a joint force, stand-in force, the forward expeditionary force, that's going to require Marines who have really critical thinking skills and mental diversity beyond what we have, a mental dexterity beyond what we have today. I believe we will need to be comfortable operating very dispersed, very spread out, very distributed. The stand-in forces, the most forward forces, that's going to require leaders. That's going to require Marines who are not just innovative, because that's overused perhaps term, but they are problem solvers who are adaptable. They also have a diversity of thought. And there's some discussion about diversity of thought in the past year or so. I think it's a good, healthy topic to be that we should break open. In my opinion, from where I sit right now, a diverse team has more talent. It has more innovative capability. It is more efficient. Diversity, in other words, I view as very cold-hearted, not emotionally. Diversity is a competitive warfighting advantage. We should view it through that lens, vis-a-vis our adversaries. If we look at it through that lens, that it's a competitive warfighting advantage, then now we're looking at it in a different way. And I think particularly against an adversary who puts a premium on uniformity of thought. In other words, all of our organization has to think the same, act the same. We can have a competitive advantage if we do it right. Let me just paint the opposite side of the coin, and it'll become real clear. The more we look the same, I think the less talented we are. The less talented we are, the less lethal we are. Every study that I'm aware of, and there may be some that say otherwise, but every study that I have read says that teams who are more diverse are more innovative. They solve problems faster. They come up with better solutions. They see things differently. And I think as leaders, it's really hard for us to sometimes acknowledge that we have blind spots in our organization or in our thinking, on our team, in ourselves. But we should acknowledge that, because we have an obligation. I have an obligation. The leaders of the Marine Corps have an obligation to design our Marine Corps in a way that not just preserves and strengthens our advantage that we have right now, but it does so in a way in the future that draws on the individual talent of each individual Marine, the talent of the individual. Let me just expand upon that just for a moment, because I think talent management, personnel development, personnel management, whatever name people want to use or comfortable with, this is my focus for the next 2 years as Commandant. We have to change our personnel systems at our manpower headquarters in Quantico to get us where we need to go. I think the people at Manpower in Quantico, at Manpower and Reserve Affairs, really hardworking. Everyone down there busting their backside every day. They're doing what we need them to do. But they're working in a framework, in a system that's not going to meet what we need in the future. So a lot of people have done a lot of heavy lifting over the years to get our force strong so that we can be ready to respond. But the systems, the models that we currently have are not suited for what we're going to need in the future. So we're going to have to shift, in other words, our institutional focus from where we have been, which is recruit and replace, in other words, numbers, to invest and retain. And now we're talking about individuals. So it is a fundamental shift that I believe we have to make. Now here, I think we're not relying on humans alone to do that. I think we can rely on, we can tap into artificial intelligence to help transform the way that our personnel management framework operates right now. I think the opportunities there are about limitless, and we're already, both services, the Navy and the Marine Corps, are already beginning to use artificial intelligence to help there. I think it can inform individual and institutional level decision making. I think it can help us better retain the Marines that we need. But to do so, we have to prioritize talent management, because it's not a one-time event. I think talent management is continuous. It's a process that plans the talent requirements that we have. It attracts the very best people into the services, both the Navy and Marine Corps. It ensures that the framework for managing the talent that we have is run efficiently. It retains the most talented people. It facilitates the movement of talent to where it can have the biggest impact within the organization, because that's really what we're after. It also, though, in the process, I think it has to incentivize high-performing Marines. We have to be able to identify them and incentivize them for things, especially on duty stations, especially in locations and billets where maybe it's not always the favorite place for people to go, but it's very important for the service. I think the legacy retirement system made it easier for us. I think going forward, we're in a different place. So we can no longer afford, just put bluntly, we can't afford to lose all the experience of our non-commissioned officers, our staff non-commissioned officers, or our officers who have 8, 9, 10, 12 years of experience, because the new system is going to enable them to retire at that point. We cannot afford for that talent to walk out the door. So I think to encourage retention among the really experienced Marines, if we're going to grow a more talented, a more diverse force, we're going to have to create an institutionally level playing field, which is a huge part of NNOA's focus. That gives every Marine equal opportunities to succeed. Now here, I think me, and I'll use myself as an example, I think I did not differentiate between equality and equity. And I did not distinguish between the two. I thought, probably like many, I won't speak for anybody else, but that if you gave everybody else the same chance, then the outcome, that's the level playing field. Everybody has the exact same chances, and then the outcome will be the same. But that assumes, of course, that everybody starts in the same place. That's not the case, very rarely the case. I'm an infantry officer, I'm an infantryman. And if we go on a hike with a platoon, and we're all in different heights, some of us 5'10", some of us 6'3", we're all going to use exactly the same pack with exactly the same weight. And we're going to expect the same outcome, because that's the way we do it. That's standardization. But that's not equity, because the pack is designed to fit a certain size human being. It's optimized for that. So for grading endurance of Marines and our ability to hike, well, is it really right to look at the 5'7", 5'8" Marine with the same size pack that's really built for a 6-foot Marine or a 6'1" Marine? I don't think so. So we got to give them the right equipment. So I think it's equal to give every Marine the same size pack. It's not equitable. And a lot of people have seen photographs or cartoons that paint this clearly also. So I think we have to evaluate, if we're going to evaluate fairly, and we got to equip them right, we got to understand where they're starting from. We got to give them the resources to succeed. If that's true, and if we consider then that every individual Marine is just as important as every other Marine on the right and left, then I think we're headed in the right direction. Because I think we can't afford to waste the talent. We can't afford to leave a Marine behind, because we assume that they were all starting at exactly the same spot. So if that's not true, if we're not starting at the same spot, now I'm in my brain, trying to think through, how do we bridge that gap? Because for a long time, I assume we're all starting at the same spot, so we're all going to have the same outcome. How do we make sure, and I'm using a metaphor here, of course, but how do we make sure every Marine gets the right size pack so that all those barriers are gone? And we're going to get the best performance we can out of our organization, out of our platoon. I think there are structural impediments here that get in our way. We should ask, how can we give the Marines the right tools that are going to set them up for success? Instead of, there's one size fits all here, everybody's starting at the same place, which is how typically we do it. How do we intentionally, deliberately pay attention to how we look as individuals, at individuals, not as individuals, but how we look at individuals? Because right now we look at numbers. Right now we look at, we're all the same. So I don't think we can operate in a passive mode going forward. When it comes to diversity, when it comes to inclusion, we can no longer be passive. We have to be active. We have to be deliberate, or else our organization is going to lose the talent that we're trying to keep. We have to pay attention to our own biases. We all have them. We can offset them. We can't eliminate them. We have to get away, I think, from the natural tendency to, they look like me. I'm going to pick a team around me that looks like me. Now we have to recognize the individual talents. Actually, the things that separate each one of us, not the things that look identical throughout the whole unit. We have to look at the differences and capitalize on them. We're going to need leaders, I think, who intentionally reach out to those who do not look like them. For mentors, for mentees, because that's how you're going to widen your aperture. That's how we're going to get better. Because if we pick our mentors and our mentees that look exactly, think like us, brought up like us, we're in a trap. Inclusion. My view, I think I owe you my view on inclusion. Every Marine has to feel like he belongs, like their contribution matters, like their presence, their perspectives are valued, they're integrated into the organization. I've always felt that if once you earn the title Marine, okay, it means that you're not only on the team, but you're an equally important member of the team. Because you don't just join the Marine Corps. You have to actually, the difference is you actually have to become a Marine. So the focus, why am I mentioning the linkage between talent management and inclusion? Because if a Marine feels in a unit, if he feels like their ideas or their contributions don't matter, or if it feels like to them they're not taken seriously, then they're going to leave, they're going to walk, and we're going to lose the talent that we have to keep. And we cannot afford to lose the talent. We can't afford to lose the diversity that we work so hard to recruit. So now my focus, when I'm harping on a little bit, is my focus is now on retention and viewing every individual Marine as an individual, not a number. We've increased the accession of minorities in the Marine Corps over the past 2 decades. We got a ways to go, but made a lot of progress. But we are struggling right now to retain that diversity. We've got to identify ways to improve the rates at which we retain, we keep that whole diverse force that we brought in the front door, because we're losing them, we're hemorrhaging them. And by minority, when I say minority, I'm not talking just about race, not talking just about ethnicity. I mean, everybody who has historically been underrepresented in our force, that's a minority by definition. I think, in other words, that retention, if we think about it in a way, hinges on inclusion, inclusivity. If members of a group, any organization, a squad, a platoon, a squadron, if they feel like they're included, if they feel like they're valued, then they're going to be probably more prone to seeing a future in the Marine Corps for themselves. And if we're doing it right, if we promote and we retain equitably across the ranks, then at the senior levels, the senior staff NCOs, the general officers, then it's going to reflect the same cadre as we had in the younger population. And that's not the case today, because we don't have diversity at the general and flag officer ranks. And it's not going to happen overnight. It takes 30 years to make a general, it takes 30 years to make an admiral. We have got to keep the talent. We got to retain the talent that's in our ranks right now. Now, I'm hopeful that we're moving in the right direction. Last year, we selected a lot, percentage-wise, a much higher percentage of females going into command. higher percentage of minorities going into the recruiting service. We've grown enlisted accessions from diverse backgrounds every single year. So we're doing things on the front end, right? At the command screening, command selection levels, things are looking better. Now, how do we prevent losing them? I think it is a virtuous cycle. If an individual stays in and they're part of that diverse population, then other Marines are going to see that and go, hey, there's somebody that looks a lot like me up there. I got a shot. I have a chance. They're going to re-enlist. They're going to stick around. They're not going to get out at 9, 10, 11 years. Then they become the next generation's example. If we can create that cycle, if we can feed that cycle, we're in business. I think that's partly what success looks like. I think our minority numbers have increased. That's good, but it's not about a percentage. There is no number. It's not about, do we have too many women? Do we have X number of minorities? That's not actually what we should be after. Success, in its simple terms, I think success is when no Marine asks whether they got where they are because they were diverse, because they were a minority. In other words, I'm only here to fill in the blank. Check the block. When we get past that, then we're in business. And I think it's a shame that some people may think that way, but I'm a realist. They do. We have to do a better job. We have to advocate more by saying leaders need to do this. We need to be vocal and say, no, they didn't get there. They didn't get into command because they're diverse. They got into command because of their talent, because they're a great Marine. We have to squash that mentality that says they're there because. No, they're there because they're a high-performing Marine. To compete at peak effectiveness, we have to bring into the service the right people with the right skill sets. And then we got to measure their talents, got to match their skills to the duties they want to go after, and they're best suited to perform. When we invest in those individuals, then we're on the right track. Then we're actually incentivizing the retention that I'm talking about in the right numbers and the right capabilities that we need, so they can continue to add to the organization, and it starts the cycle all over again. That's where we've got to get to. So probably talked long enough, Seth. I'd like to wrap it up, but and then see what's on your mind. But again, I don't have all the answers. Senior leaders don't have all the answers. But I do think we can take a much more sort of, in my terminology, more of a direct buyer's approach here and selectively target the people that we need to keep and find the right incentives that'll convince them, that'll induce them to stay in our ranks. And then with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Seth, and see, I am ready to take notes, ready to take on the suggestions or answer questions. So I'm back over to you, Seth. Hey, Seth, on my end, I can't hear you. I may be the only one who can't hear you, but I can't hear you.
I can't hear you either, Seth.
We can't hear you.
While we're waiting for Seth, Commandant St. Karis here, great set of remarks, really appreciate it. And there's a interesting comment here by Colonel Vinny, and I'm going to mispronounce his last name, Chitillo. But Vinny, can you go ahead and just go ahead and come off mute and say your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me join and spend some time with you today. This is Colonel Vinny Ciccoli. I'm the CO out at NROTC in Villanova. And just got here. A matter of fact, just welcomed some new midshipmen and of course their parents here to the university. And it strikes me that although I don't have a recruiting background, that I have a pretty important role to play for the Commandant when it comes to talent management. So, sir, here's what I wrote. You hit this point, just want to illuminate it a bit. Is it possible that as we emphasize talent management, there could be some tension with the need to attract diverse and especially gritty leaders? You mentioned the active stance, and this takes a lot of effort, of course, and clearly our officers need to have the passion and perseverance to overcome unique challenges. And you did, of course, also mention the need for mental dexterity and diversity of thought. For me, it does seem possible that today we could recruit or even retain the wrong leaders if we don't properly define talent management. Although I do think we have a fair and equitable system, I concur a high performer is harder to identify by the current metrics, especially when we start in different places. And since I'm currently commanding out here, sir, at NRTC, I wonder if there's a better way to recruit, maybe from even within my college program teams here and across the universities I govern at Penn and Temple and Drexel. And there is quite a bit of diversity there as you get into the city. Could I perhaps recruit those who might not have the right data point? They might be at that university, but are they the ones that are most likely to connect their high level interest with their calling? How do I get those people, make that connection, and therefore have the best gritty leader on our team? And sir, just standing by for anything you might have for thoughts there. Thank you.
Vinny, I'm with you. I am a product of NROTC. You are sitting in the middle of a great place to go fishing for talent, for people who may not even have thought about the military, maybe never met anybody, never knew anybody in the military. You're sitting right in the middle of it. A couple of things. I was an officer recruiter, not a good one, but I was an officer recruiter, so I know also how difficult it is to go pull from those college campuses the kind of people that we're looking for. So I'm a survivor of recruiting duty. I wasn't great. I was just a survivor of it. Here's what I think. The pool is the key. They are role models just like on active duty. In other words, the midshipmen that you have are the best salesmen that you have. They represent to other people, kind of like any other exemplar, they're the role models. So I think that relying on the pool is huge. That's how recruiters live or don't live, is based on their pool. Your pool is midshipmen. It doesn't mean they're active, they are your recruiters per se officially, but no kidding, they are your embeds into the student population. And if they represent what the Navy and Marine Corps are looking for in the whole man kind of whole woman's concept, they're gonna find you they're gonna go looking for the right people. They're gonna bring them to your doorstep. I do think the second part, though, that we're not always fishing in the right pools. I think things like historically Black campuses that we have not always delved into in the past out of an efficiency. In other words, trying to get people qualified from this school or that school. I'm going to spend my time over at this, whatever it is, engineering school, because everyone can pass there, and I'm not going to spend time over here. Wrong approach. So we have to go into markets, into places that we are not spending enough time in right now. And there's a practical aspect to that for recruiters because they only have X amount of days in the week and hours in the day. But the fact is, I don't think we're in all the markets that we ought to be. You're in the right place. You have midshipmen there who are the best examples, the best role models, the best they are your sensors into the student body writ large. They represent what we're looking for. You couldn't ask, in other words, if you didn't have them, then it would be in a tough spot. You have them. So I think you're in the right place sitting in the middle of them. I think your midshipmen are your pool. And I think they represent the example of what you're looking for. So as you fish for more, as you find more, you have the best exemplar right in front of you. As far as how to succeed at that, if I had knocked it out of the park as an OSO, as an officer recruiter, I'd give you the 7 things that made me so successful. I worked my butt off and it was hard. But I'm glad you're where you are. You're right in the middle of a great school in a great area. So I think you're in the right place at the right time.
Thank you, Commandant.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. We did some switching, changing, so I think we're good. Sir, I have Colonel Chris Shaw on the line. He's got a question for you. Chris, if you could go off mute and please ask your question.
I can't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
General, Colonel Chris Shaw, my question is that I think there's some units that do DE&I very well, and there's some units that do it poorly. How can we get more consistency throughout the force to attack the issues of DE&I more consistently? Thank you, Commandant.
Well, a fantastic question. How do we get it more consistently across units? First of all, I think I would agree with you. It's not a construct, a framework that's consistently applied across all units, and therefore different. Some are really successful and some are not. I think part of it comes from the top. Defining the terms and understanding the distinction between them, one part of it. The second part is actually making the argument for why it matters. Because if we can't get past the first two, if we can't define inclusion, in other words, if we can't get me, like where I was 5 years ago, if we don't know the difference between equity and equality, okay, we're not going to get very far in any, we're not going to get to the next step. So the definitions matter, and understanding of the definitions and distinctions matter. The second part, though, is what's the value proposition. If a captain, a staff sergeant if he can't believe that those things are going to make his unit better, we're not going to go anywhere. Because where the rubber meets the road, of course, is not Chris, is not you and me. Where the rubber meets the road is a captain, an 03 and 04, it's an E6 and E7. That's where the rubber meets the road. And if they may not be anti-inclusion, but if they don't see any value in it, like it's no value added, then they're not going to spend any extra hour on it, any extra effort. We have to make the case. Why diversity, equity, inclusion? How is that going to make his unit better? How's he going to make him as a unit, as a leader, better? Because if we can't make that argument, it's going nowhere. I don't know that they would actively resist us. They'll just say, I don't have enough time in the week. I don't have enough time in the day to carve out for something that is not adding. So if it's not adding to my war fighting capability, I'm not sure why I'm spending all this time on it. And it becomes politically correct. I have to spend an hour on this. Now we know how that ends up. I think the top part, we have to provide the right definitions, distribute that. We have to make the case to our mid-level management leadership why this will help us be better, not just because it's the right thing to do, but actually it will make your organization better. If we can't make that case, then I'm not sure they're going to dedicate extra time, because I'm pretty convinced they don't have extra time right now. So far, we have not made that case. And we can hold them to a standard and prescribe things, but in the end, the execution is left in the hands of mid-level officers and staff NCOs. And if they don't believe in their heart that it's going to make our unit better, then they're not going to invest the time. They'll check the block, but they won't invest really their heart in it.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have a Captain Farms on the line with a question for you, sir, concerning the fitness report system. Captain Farms, can you come off of mute and ask your question, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, General. This is Captain Farms. I was calling to ask a question about our fitness reporting system. So many Marines believe that our fitness reporting system is severely flawed. And I had a two-part question to address this. One, in the diversity, equity, and inclusion article that was released in the Marine Corps Gazette, there was mention of a survey that's being conducted into our fitness reports, all reports between 1999 and 2020. And I wanted to know, are you aware of when we'll be able to see the results of that study? Because that's something a lot of us are interested in. And two, do you know if the Marine Corps is going to adopt a fitness reporting system, something that reflects more of a 360 feedback system? Because the way that we do the evaluations now, I do believe is getting in the way of talent management and retention. And if we don't fix that, it goes beyond like anything that we could do with photos or anything. I think we need to start there to fix our evaluation system if we're going to make any strides when it comes to talent management and retention.
Two great points, two great questions. First, the study I'm well aware of, the survey I'm well aware of. Let me find out. I don't want to give you the wrong answer of when it's going to be complete, when we'll have the results. But if you can send me or send Colonel Oklu your email address, then I'll answer you back and I'll tell you it's in October or when that study will be, when we'll have the results of that study. And I think, well, we'll see what the study says. But I don't think we're all going to be surprised at what it tells us. Now it'll tell us the outcome, but it'll be more difficult to make a direct linkage to something, a cause and effect linkage, but that's what we have to be able to do. The second part, 360 feedback. We are doing that now on a limited basis as a trial run for command screening. And to get a better picture, the 360 picture that you're talking about, I think if I understood you right, that's at the root of it. So we're trying it now on a trial basis to see how a board, a promotion board or a command screening board might use that. How, because it's got to be incorporated with all the other data, all the other fitness reports and everything else that comes into the system. So we're trying it on a small basis now to try to learn from that, see how specifically, how the Marine would learn from it and how the board might use it. Can I ask you, since you asked the question, what do you think? What do you think would help us get the more complete picture?
Right, sir. I definitely think adopting something that's more of a 360 feedback system where we have more than just the opinions of one commander to be able to talk to the talents of the Marines that are, because there are a lot of things that could get in the way of the organization really finding out what an individual Marine brings to the table. And I know there were previous discussions in previous NOA symposiums where people spoke on our lapses in talent management, where we have Marines who have degrees and a certain amount of experience in certain areas, and we probably should have been using them in a different area to take advantage of those talents that they brought to the fight, but we didn't know about them because we don't have anything in our evaluation system that could point that out. There's nothing in there where you could speak to what it is that you bring to the team or where other people that you work with could speak to that. And I think that we would benefit from at least having something like that there so we don't drop the ball so severely when it comes to talent management and have Marines who bring a lot to the fight just working in the wrong areas. So I do think that that's something that that we could benefit from, just having something that does more than just have the one commander who's writing on you and then providing a worksheet for an RO to give you markings, and then that's all Headquarters Marine Corps sees on that person, and they don't get to see a full picture of what they bring to the table.
I'm taking notes while you're talking. The reason we're trying this 360 feedback is for the reasons you highlight, so that we can get a better picture from peers and from junior Marines what we can't see through just a reporting senior and a reviewing officer. So that's the reason we're trying this out, is for the same purpose you're talking about. And I think we'll learn from it that we do get a much more complete picture. I think the challenge will be how to factor that in with all the rest of the pieces of information that a promotion board member has to look at an individual's up for promotion. We'll have to figure out how that fits in. We know it'll have value. We just haven't figured out. We will need to figure out how it fits in. Is that, if you follow me?
Yes, sir. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Well, before we go on, I mean, here just to illustrate, because I'm part of this effort to incorporate 360. Here's the kind of dilemma that you're faced with sometimes. You're a board member. You have, to your point, the example you used, we have Captain X here, or Major X. They have 10 years of glowing fitness reports. Everything looks sparkling. Guy's going to be like the next, colonel we're lighting the world on fire. The 360 evaluation comes in as toxic leader. So your challenge on the board is, what do you do with that? Because you have a 360 evaluation that says toxic leader, but all these other officers for 10 years have said, this officer's going places. So we'll need to figure out how we incorporate that extra bit of information, which we need, but how do we incorporate it? And we'll get there, but we have to learn along the way.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have a question from a Major Ashley Wallace from Marfort Res. I think it's appropriate in the session. So Major Wallace, if you could come off mute, please, and ask your question concerning DE&I.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. So like I said, I'm from Marine Forces Reserve, the G1, and I've been tasked with helping the reserves force figure out what D&I looks like, as well as talent management. And so we've talked back and forth with my boss and a few of my other Marines trying to crack this nut. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg, talent management, DE&I? And we've talked like, well, if you have a solid talent management system, would DE&I naturally be a product of that? Or do you have to, like you said earlier, sir, give everybody the same size pack? And then from there, appropriately say, okay, we all started with the right size pack. We're all here at the finish line. Now let's see how we all got here and who did good at what, and then do we go from there? So I'm interested to see what you think on that.
Well, I think when I wrestle with a problem that looks like the cycle you're describing, I think put down pencil, take a breath, get a beer, and just say, it doesn't matter actually at what point on the cycle. We could argue for weeks about where to jump in on the cycle. The fact is both are important. So we don't need to choose between the two or which one is first and which one is second. If we acknowledge that right now we don't do talent management, I'm there already. We don't do actually talent management. We manage personnel like numbers, but that's not talent management. Okay, so if we acknowledge that, then we have to fundamentally change how our framework is. I think the DEI part is an integral part of it, and it's an academic discussion about which comes first. They both need to be. One needs to be incorporated. One needs to has to have a major overhaul, because I don't think our current manpower system, with minor adjustments under the hood, is going to meet what we need. So I think it's an interesting academic discussion, but in the end, both are necessary. We cannot get to talent management without an infusion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But diversity, equity, and inclusion by and of themselves are not going to equate, they're not going to equate to talent management, because talent management is active things. They're both important. Your challenge in front of you, I mean, you're the G1, you're sitting like right exactly where the rubber meets the road.
Yes, sir.
We need both. It's not either or, it's and. And we have to first get past the point where if we just make a couple of these minor adjustments to our manpower system, we'll be good. Like, no, that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's putting butts in seats. That's numbers. We have to get to talent management, individuals.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hopefully you're going to be able to solve it, because you're a major. You should have all the answers by now.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Sir, we have a good question from Admiral Sinclair Harris, sir, that I think it's appropriate for this forum. Sir, if you could come off mute, sir, and ask your question.
So, Commandant, there are a lot of mature or seasoned NNOA members like myself, okay, who quite frankly, I went on the bridge of a ship not long ago and I didn't know what the hell was going. They had no bridge wing. The computers made no sense. I couldn't tell anybody. I was disqualified myself from driving a ship. But I think there's still a role to play for us seasoned retirees in NOA. What would you like to see us doing?
Sir, I'm at a disadvantage because Admiral Harris is one of my mentors, so I'm at a huge disadvantage here. When he asked me for advice or an answer, because he already knows, he's such a good mentor, he already knows the answer, and then he's going to ask me, and he's going to test me, is that the right answer or not? We have to have senior mentors, sir, first. Why? We can make a, if, we think of a way to illustrate it. The SEALs have a, and we use a similar model. The SEALs have a great, very simple model for how they look for instructors, SEAL instructors. On a vertical and a horizontal axis, they put performance and trust. And their logic is everybody is looking for the high performing, high trust person. Okay, that's a given. And no one wants the low performing, low trust person. No one wants that person. But the interesting part of that model is that the high performing, low trust person, toxic. Same with an organization. In other words, the organization that looks really busy doing 100 things, but there's no trust in that organization, toxic. Where do senior mentors come in? I don't think it's not the technical skills that they need. They'll get that. It's not the performance every day. They'll get that from the active duty chain. What they won't get from that active duty chain that they'll get from leaders like you is an understanding of how important, why trust? Why is trust important in the military? Why is trust important on a ship, in a unit? And how do I get there? How do I identify, if you're a leader, if you're a major, if you're a captain, how do I identify the untrustworthy people? Because in any organization I've ever been in, if you ask them, like, who do we trust least? They'd all point to Dave. We all know who that is. We know it. So, okay, so how, if we're building a team, I think you help coach us into how do you identify those individuals, and either they change and we build trust and we have a great cohesive team, or they're out. Because I can't have this cancer inside my unit. It is, we can improve performance. We can all coach, inspire, we can improve performance. But I think in an area like trust, you're going to help us understand as leaders, how do you build trust? How do you improve it? Why is it so important in the first place? And trust is just one area I'm using, one example. The technical skills on a bridge, in a plane, we're going to get that from our active duty help. Where you bring, what you bring to the table, Sink, Admiral Harris, is the harder stuff like trust. How do we build it? How do we measure it? How do we carve out the part that's bad? How do we improve the good? How do we build trust that equals a high-performing team? How do we do that? I think these are areas where only you can bring that to us. That kind of bring it to life right in front of us. That's what you do. That's what you do.
Thank you, Commandant. Appreciate it. One other thing, I would also say that we can all help recruit too. We can point those young folks and be reaching out to those young folks to get them. I got a sailor and a Marine who is serving right now.
Sir, we have time for maybe one more question and then some closing remarks on your part, sir. I have one from the RSCO at RS Houston, Major Boston, and I think it's appropriate for this setting, sir. Major Boston, if you can come off mute, please, and ask your question.
Good morning, gentlemen. Colonel, thank you for recognizing me here for the question. General, thank you again for your comments this morning. My question was about order remerit or merit reorder correction. And just wondering if it is there to account for talent management. The example of the PAC that you used earlier. I guess I see it as an opportunity to identify Marines that maybe come from further back as they join the service because of deficiencies that exist socially, socioeconomically, but they get into our core organization and they're performing well. And I see the merit reorder as an opportunity to actively manage our talent better. I wonder if that's a part of the onus for doing it, and if it is in fact yielding those type of results. Over.
You are, Major Boston, you are spot on. That is exactly the reason that General Neller started this before I became commandant. We talked about it among senior leaders, and the logic, the rationale was exactly as you laid it out. If we did nothing, then your standing was exactly the same as when you finished the basic school 20 years ago. There's no incentive in there to push hard, there's no way to acknowledge superior performers. So the merit reorder was a tool that could recognize, to your point, those that are making exceptional progress relative to their peers and bump them up. So that was the intended purpose. You hit it spot on. Is it working? Too early to tell. I think where it will bear out is in places like retention. It's in places like command screening. It's in places like who gets selected for general officer. Our system before that was, it doesn't matter how hard or how little you work. If you and me both got selected, we just kept our ranking from second lieutenant on up. This was a way to incentivize superior performance. And I think it's too early to tell whether that's got long-term legs on it or not. I think it does, but I think you have to give it time to bake in where, the individuals that are being reordered, that are being bumped up, I think you have to wait a while to see how that pans out, and it's too early to tell. But my gut tells me it's the right thing to do, and it's actually going to accelerate talent in the same sort of way as a deep selection would, same sort of idea. Recognize high performers, don't penalize them. You can't move any faster than the slowest guy kind of approach. But it's too early, I think, to tell.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that I believe that. I believe that this provides an opportunity for Marines to perform as well as they possibly can. And that there's an opportunity there that is I would say incentive, but there's an opportunity for more responsibility. So psychologically, I think it certainly has an impact. And for everyone who volunteered to support the recruiting force, from myself and General Bone, please, we can take all the help that we can get. Thank you, gentlemen, for an opportunity this morning.
Sure. Back over to you, sir, for any wrap-up comments. And then we just have a couple of folks we want to recognize for awards right before you get off the line, sir.
Well, I don't have a speech at the end. I can't tell you, words aren't going to do it justice, but I'm really grateful that you allow me, allow the CNO, allow Coast Guard Commandant just to spend time with you. I have a page worth of notes. As always, I feel like I'm taking away more than I'm given. From Chris Shaw to Vinny, Ashley, Admiral Harris, Major Boston, you give me things, senior leaders, things that we have to think about. So I'm grateful for the feedback. I'm grateful. The questions are actually feedback. And I'm very grateful for the time up front a little bit to share with you where I am thinking. I think we have a long way to go. We're on the right path. We're not moving fast enough. And most of the answers are not coming from the top to the bottom. They're coming the other way around. We just have to be better listeners. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, sir. Sure, I want to turn it over to someone who's done a phenomenal job putting together this entire symposium, Lieutenant Colonel Leila Thomas. She just wants to recognize 3 Marines who have just done an outstanding job this year in a very difficult situation. Lieutenant Colonel Thomas, if you could take it away.
Yes, thank you, Colonel Clue. Good morning, Commandant. Like Colonel Clue said, at this time, NNOA wants to take a moment to recognize some members of our chapters from around the country. So this is for work that they've done in this year, contributing to the success of their chapters as well as NNOA as a whole. So the first Marine we're going to recognize is First Lieutenant Diane Oduma, and they received the Golden Pen Award. The Golden Pen Award was established in 1989 in memory of Captain Eddie Renford, United States Navy, and a former NNOA president. It's presented to a junior officer in good standing who excels in the accomplishments of the goals and objectives of NNOA. The next Marine we're going to recognize is Captain Lakira Farms for Distinguished Service. The Distinguished Service Award is presented to members nominated by chapter leadership for their continued exemplary performance. And finally, the last award we're going to present today is to the Marine officer who excelled at the accomplishments of the mission, vision, goals of NNOA. It's in honor of Lieutenant General Frank Peterson for his significant accomplishments during a stellar career and examples of professionalism and leadership. This year's recipient is Captain Carlin Merrick from the Annapolis chapter. So if we could all give a round of applause to those Marines and thank them for their service. And again, wonderful job with your chapters and the organization this year. Thank you, sir.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas. Admiral Harris, sir, over to you for any wrap-up comments.
Commandant, thank you so much. Great conversation, great discussion. I always appreciate your engagement. We had many more questions here on the sideline. I'll have to say Colonel Min had a great one here about the importance of FAO and programs like that, because we've got to do a far better job, especially in the Pacific, of reassuring our allies and partners. Like you said, we're not looking to go to war with China, and the best way to do it is to make sure the folks in the Philippines or Korea Islands, other places like that, know that we're with them. And I think those programs that Colonel Min suggested in the chat are part of it. I gave him a note, told him, hey, write a point paper, run up your chain of command. I bet you get to the Commandant. And I just put an accelerator on it, so they should be looking for it. But thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Colonel Thomas, hoorah, you have been absolutely fantastic. Made this whole thing move smooth as you know what through a goose's you know what. And I couldn't appreciate you more. Colonel Clue, thank you again for your leadership. And Jamar, thank you, Commandant, and thank you all.
Okay, we'll take about a 15-minute break, and then we'll reset for Lieutenant General Smith, and we'll reconvene. So take a 10-minute break. Hopefully everybody's back on the line 5 minutes before we convene at 12:15.
Hey, Colonel Clue, there was a comment on chat from Ada Romano asking if there is a list of award winners. I know there is, and I want to ask if Captain Jones, you were running that. Program. Cynthia, are you there?
I am, sir. We've got an echo.
I don't know. It ain't me. Can you Mark information tour? Now you're muted.
If someone could drop an email in the chat, I'll email it out to her, or him or her. I forgot which one that was.
It's Ada, so I'm assuming it's a her, but I could be wrong. Ada, if you
programming language.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Ada, if you can, yeah, that worked out real well too, didn't it?
I'm showing my age too.
You put your email address in, we'll get that to you. Okay. Thank you.
I saw that, Timmy. You are absolutely right.